The search along the fig tree. Like most young women, but not all, I had the unfortunate but necessary experience of being 19. In university, I had felt I had made all the big decisions. I chose my school, my career path, I was on the road, I was paving out for myself. Of course, like all 19-year-olds, I had very little real sense in my life going forward, but I knew this was only a transitory time. I was depressed and overworked, but for the most part, I knew university was a blip. I knew it would end. What I did not know was months before turning 20, I would lose a good friend of mine. And just a month after turning 20, I lost my mom. I was catapulted into a pre existential preoccupation with death and dying and anxieties around time. Life became incredibly short, and paired with my health anxiety and numerous other mental fixations, it was even shorter. I knew viscerally that there was a finite time I had on this planet. It was that year that I wrote to myself, if time was a currency, what would I owe? Dramatic. But it might paint the picture better than explaining it all. I both lost all care for the random shit in my life and managed to super care for the overall trajectory. Time had this increased value. What the fuck was I gonna do with it? Like any 19 to 20-year-old, the possibilities of life were overwhelming. And even more so was the pressure to figure out which possibilities were of interest to me. I was double depressed, to say the least. And like many young women in their early 20s, I read Sylvia Plath and found myself deep in the analogy of the fig tree. If you're unfamiliar, the famous fig tree analogy stems from Plath's semi autobiographical book, The Bell Jar, in which the protagonist describes both the potential of her life to become many things, just as much as the consequence of hesitation and decision paralysis through the metaphor of the fig tree. It is both this awareness of the versions of ourselves, paths we may go down, and our choice to enrich our lives through these paths which determine our outcomes and the countless fruiting branches that extend out of the fig tree and may begin the process of rotting the fruit. Let me be annoying here and say that figs aren't actually fruits. Okay, but for the sake of poetic license, I'll be calling them fruits. It sounds nicer. Inflorescence does not have the same ring to it. First, this is a conversation about fulfillment. You're talking about achieving some kind of satisfaction with our lives and through our life paths. Eating the fig is both the becoming of the fruit and the fullness and satisfaction of consuming it. As you sit below the metaphorical fig tree, you are not simply enjoying its presence, but determining who you hope to become. It feels overwhelming because there are innumerable figs to choose from and you simply cannot eat all of them. In the book, Plath highlights some options: becoming a wife and a mother, a famous poet, a traveler, as well as acknowledging that the sheer visible abundance of figs implies that there are even more figs unbeknownst to her. How the fuck is someone supposed to choose? Plath essentially demonstrated through her protagonist that you may not choose and you may freeze under the pressure of choosing. You may watch the figs drop, shrivel, or rot. You may watch the seasons change and time pass, and you still have not chosen any fruit. There is less time to do so now, and you are starved of the potential despite the presence of potential food. What we're talking about here is not simply the drive for multitudes, but the grief of rotting fruit. If you've read The Bell Jar, you know that the fig tree is not just about coming of age or big life decisions, but was a result of the conversations around second wave feminism. She was not only talking about figs that she did not eat because of time, but also because of the limitations enforced by the patriarchy. Plath was exploring which figs were socially acceptable and structurally accessible to women at the time, which for the time was a rather poignant glimpse into the weight of patriarchal roles on the way we understand our lives and our potentials. We also know that second wave feminism was really fucking white, and we should definitely be expanding our scope to other intersections such as race, sexuality, class, ability. If the fig tree is all of life's potential, cultural and structural barriers exist at every intersection and are operating on the fig tree. Only some of the figs are available to you right now, even if you see them on the tree, even if you can reach them, even if you can bite into them with your teeth. This is not to be deterministic or to say that you are limited to the circumstances and identities you possess, but to recognize that these circumstances and identities matter, and that both you and the rest of the world are operating through that understanding. Let's circle back to the rotting figs. We can say that this fig is shriveling up and rotting away because we've not picked it. for one reason or another. We resent the limitations brought unto us by life, both in this cultural and structural way, and the very reality that both ourselves and the fig are destined to rot. We might hope that at least one of us is not set to waste. The tyranny of expectation is cradled so intimately by our acute awareness of our lived limitations and the bounds of the human experience that is our body. I cannot simply eat every fig in my lifetime because that's a lot of fucking figs and my body will be well worn by the end of this. As we walk along the fig tree, we must talk about our complicated relationship with the passage of time just as much as being trapped by time itself. This search for the path of our lives can become an aspect of suffering we need not punish ourselves with. We cannot control that we die, that we live short individual eternities until we do not. And so the last thing we need to be doing while eating our figs is getting angry at the fact that the figs we can enjoy are only a sliver of the deliciousness possible. I do not need to be angry at the day for being over. Let me just enjoy the day. Plath's analysis by and through the tree was only in part recognizing the existential aspect of death and dying. He was predominantly frustrated by the inability to be all the things we want to be in life. For one reason or another, we cannot be all things. I wish I had something beautiful or poetic or comforting to say, but this is true. We cannot be all things. Some fruit will rot, some grief will burrow into our skin and curse ourselves for what could have been, and for the death of what could be. We do not want to become greedy in our picking of the tree, or of the catching of that which falls into our laps, so we stare and think for far too long. We do not want a bite here and there, leaving half to waste and rot. There is simply too much to consider. All I can say is that the figs I do choose are the ones I have right now, a bite of each potential that tracks me and is not set to waste. I will live one lifetime today, and the same will happen tomorrow. The beauty of the fig tree and the earth, which is our only point of reference for understanding life, is that there will be more figs, more equally delicious and mouth-wateringly juicy figs, which bring salvation to our souls more generously than we will ever imagine. Though we will rightfully become frustrated and grieve possibilities, we should still aim to select a handful of fruit each day to become the multitudes we know ourselves to be. We will become many things, many figs, and will search along the fig tree every day that we live. But we will also live amongst the seeds and the tree itself. A part of the path is discovery, and a part of the path is the obstacle. We will live in life in the birth of our many lives and paths. We will eat and devour figs. Some will die before we taste them, as that is a natural rhythm. But someday so will we, and those who grieve us will also grieve potential, and at least we will have that in common.